Hey everybody, AI is landing in WordPress core, whether plugin builders are ready for it or not. But for plugin builders who pay attention right now, this is a great chance to build smarter products and ship faster and solve problems that were maybe out of your reach before. Today, we're digging into how AI is coming to core, how it's opening up some new doors, what it looks like, how to design plugins and take advantage of it. And this is going to be a good one. Stay tuned. This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights, product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show. Everybody, I am Matt Cromwell, founder and co-host of WP Product Talk.
And I'm Zack Katz, founder and owner of GravityKit.
And before we get started, I want to say we are on a road to hit 10,000 YouTube subscribers. And this week, we hit 5,000 already. We are on the road. I'm going to do a write-up on what we're doing. It's actually been going really cool. But you can continue to help us. So many folks who watch our show are not subscribers. If you just click that subscribe button, it helps us a ton.
Yeah, excellent. And a huge thanks to Freemius for being our exclusive growth partner on the road to 10,000 subscribers. Freemius helps software makers grow, monetize, and succeed. Freemius is a merchant of record platform, and what that means is that they handle everything around selling software. Checkout, payment, subscriptions, licensing, updates, global tax compliance, all the stuff you need to do if you're selling WordPress products, so that you can focus on building the products themselves. So huge thanks to Freemius for sponsoring the show.
Alrighty, we're going to jump into AI coming into WordPress core. And to do that, we're bringing a good friend of mine who happens to be on the core AI team. Here he is, Jason Adams. Hey man, good to see you.
Good to see you. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Jason, welcome. Thanks for being here. Please tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been a professional nerd for a long time, a couple of decades with a background where about 15 years ago I got into WordPress. Before that, I was doing home automation and building scientific testing equipment and random stuff. And then most recently, I have been working with the core AI team. I'm not actually a lead on that team. I'm just a guy who is happy to help. I'm a very active maintainer, I guess you could say. And then through that, in October, I ended up joining Automattic, where I'm helping to work alongside James LePage, who actually the last time I was on this podcast, it was me and James on here, which was fun. Yeah. I work alongside him to help lead the AI teams at Automattic, where we have tons and tons of different AI work going on in there, because we're also trying to lead by example of what does it look like right now in this crazy, fast-paced age of AI to be innovating as best we can. And then I'm still contributing to core AI. Shout out to Felix, who he and I work a lot together on the PHP and WP AI client. We just got 0.40 out on Monday, and we're really pleased with that. So yeah, lots of active contribution there, which is super fun. Like I've been in tech a long time. It's never been this fast paced, and it's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it feels like it's exciting and it's daunting, but it's in a way that's thrilling that I haven't felt in a long time, since the early days of like CSS becoming a standard that everybody was adopting, and
yeah,
RSS, like Web 2.0, and I have things like the access to APIs that weren't available before. This feels like that, but just way broader, because the tools themselves are able to help us implement the tools.
You're dating yourself there, Zach.
Right.
You're like back in the day when everything was green screens. Like,
yeah. When I started coding was when HTML4 came out.
It does
Yeah.
feel really awesome. Hey, and we see some folks already taking advantage of the comment section. If you're here on YouTube or on LinkedIn right now, feel free to leave comments there for us, and we will highlight them on the screen and answer your questions as much as we can. So let's jump into it. Jason, we talked about this last time you were on, but things are rapidly changing all the time.
Yeah.
And we talked about it at a high level in terms of AI and WordPress and all the direction that things were heading at the time. I'd like to do, if you can, a quick little update on the things that you all have shipped, because one thing that I think a lot of folks don't recognize is that it's not like AI coming into core is like one thing. There's several kind of big projects that are happening. So give us a quick little update, and then I want to jump more into opportunities and things like that.
Yeah. So one, I'll clarify, even like when we're saying AI is coming into core, like what does that mean specifically? Trying to be concrete here. So as part of Core AI, there is a client. So when I say client, I'm talking about a singular way of being able to communicate with many AI providers, right? There's OpenAI, there's Google, there's Anthropic, there's open source ones, Olama and whatnot. And having the ability to switch or to not couple yourself to one specific one is really important. And so you use the client as a way of being able to make your requests and get back and forth with the AI without it having to be tightly coupled to some one provider. So there's the PHP AI client, which is a generic framework agnostic, which is kind of an interesting thing that's in WordPress that is not actually specific to WordPress. It's just anybody doing anything with PHP can use this package to do that. So if you're working in Laravel or if you're working on something bespoke, you can use it. And then you have the WP AI client, which is it's literally just a wrapper that sits on top of that and then it does some things like hook into WordPress and use the WordPress request system to actually communicate with providers and so on and so forth. And so when we talk about, and we're actually writing this now, but like the merge proposal for core, it is effectively both of those because one's on top of the other, but it's the WordPress AI client that will be going into core. One thing that's really important to call out there, when we say like AI is going into core, I think for some people they hear like we're like shoving like models or something into core. What's going into core is the ability to work with models. We're not actually,
Nice.
if you go to the PHP AI client right now, you'll see that we have Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google providers set up in there. That is not going into core because as part of the WordPress philosophy, we don't want to, in a roundabout way, end up being like giving business to OpenAI or whoever. Like we don't want to put the WordPress badge of approval on any one provider. We want it to be where everybody chooses one, is there a provider or do you just not want to use AI right now? And then two, which provider are you comfortable using? Which also gets important for folks who have like HIPAA compliance needs and that sort of a thing. There are specific providers out there who can do that. So they need the ability to control that, the flow of information and so on and so forth. Like there's a lot going into this to make sure it's being done responsibly. So then other than that, we have the Abilities API, which already went into 6.9, right? That was super cool and just gave us a fundamental functional primitive, a simple way of being able to define things that could be used with AI. It's not actually specific to AI, but that was part of the motivation. Then we have the MCP adapter, which uses the Abilities API to be able to create an MCP server. You can either have like one MCP server, like a super one that's for all of WordPress, or you can make your own individual ones. Like WooCommerce, for example, uses the MCP adapter, and they just have their own because they wanted to just contain their own tools and things like that. It's one note on that. It's called an adapter because what we don't want to do is totally get ourselves coupled to some specific protocol. Because MCP, like a lot of things in AI right now, is an experiment of sorts. And so it's like, yes, if you want an MCP server, you can use this. It'll wrap abilities, and there you go. But maybe later we'll make a different one. There are different protocols emerging all the time. So that's why it's called an adapter. And then
Pause
lastly, yes,
on that one, when you said that's what WooCommerce is doing, just to help folks understand exactly what you mean, because WooCommerce is a plugin, but it's also a bit of an ecosystem. It's also got a hosted version. What do you mean exactly by that's what WooCommerce is doing?
WooCommerce has in WooCommerce core an MCP server that can be opted into. So it's off by default, and you can turn it on.
Yeah.
And so I think it was December or November when they released that. I could be wrong. I just know that there's was work on that. And so, just a lot of that exploration. Yeah, does that answer that question?
I think so. Yep.
Okay,
Just
cool.
want to clarify for folks, because I mean that's exactly the type of thing we want to get into. Is like, what if GiveWP wants to put an MCP server inside its plugin?
Right.
Is WooCommerce the standard for how we should look at things like that or not? So,
which is a great question. So the last package I'll mention is the AI experiments plugin, which is on .org as I think it's just called AI on .org. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is us trying to lead by example and show what could be possible. What are things that we could see AI being really useful. One example that it seems so trite, but I'm specifically pleased with, is the ability to generate an excerpt from the post content. The reason that I love it so much is because the UI is so stupid simple. You push a button. Do you want the excerpt? Button. So it's like, from a user perspective, are you using AI? You don't even need to be aware of that. Who cares? The point is that you have a really simple way of being able to generate an excerpt. And I'm really excited about features like that are not overtly AI, but are AI powered and bring real value.
absolutely.
So that is everything going on in core AI right now.
Yeah, love it. Cool. So let's jump into implications and whatnot. And I also want to make sure that we leave some time towards the middle end for questions, because we already have some really good questions coming in. Zack, I'd love to hear your take right now. Where does your head go when you think about what's going on from the core AI team's perspective, and you think about GravityKit and all the things that you're doing? Where does your head go? Like, what do you like? I want to jump on this opportunity right away. Or are you one of those that's like, get me far away from all this crap?
No, and I think it makes sense for every product owner at this point to, if you are somebody who wants to be far away from AI, then double down on that and make that your niche, because it's going to be very niche. It's not where the future is heading. So in terms of where we are, is trying to find the easy wins, like Jason was just saying, that aren't too overwhelming for the customer, where too much happens all at once that they're not in control of. So a prime example that we have is in our plugin Gravity Import, where you have to map CSV fields. You upload a CSV to your website, and you have to map those fields, the headers for each one of the CSV columns, to a field in Gravity Forms. Right now, we use hard-coded checks to identify something as a number or something. We use as much hard-coded logic as we can to make it easy for customers to auto map the fields automatically. That is totally an easy win to say, okay, I'm going to upload. Let me auto map using AI instead of hard coding this stuff. But then even something simple like that, Jason, like what you said, doesn't have the same implications surrounding privacy possibly as uploading a form. If we wanted to say auto map these fields, that means that we have to send the CSV columns to an external AI provider and have them read that stuff. So then do we have to present the customer with a UI that says, are any of these fields containing sensitive data?
Yeah.
Like there's so many implications when you start to actually implement AI in a way that is secure and customer first, that maybe those questions should be in a step before, but all of it gets a little more convoluted for us with GravityKit because we're dealing with forms data, and forms data contains a lot of PII, personally identifiable information, and privacy stuff. So we're working hard to find all the places that our customers will have their productivity unlocked, but a lot of that still is related to stuff that maybe they don't want to send to the cloud.
Yeah, responsible disclosure matters, and figuring out how to, when does somebody need to know that? Is it the kind of thing that you just, is it kind of like the modern annoying cookies banner where it's like, do you accept, do you do it one time and then you're like, okay, you're good to go. All right, we're going to proceed, or is it every single individual time that, you're about to send something to, model, I think iPhone works this way right now, right? Where it's like, it's either internal and then it'll ask you every time, hey, do you want to use ChatGPT for this? And so I think we're definitely living in a day and age where we're still figuring out, how that, what is responsible disclosure? What does that look like right now?
And what is there in core in terms of how to sanitize things? Like right now, if we wanted to, in GravityKit, we're looking into sanitizing things to make sure we never, even if the customer thinks it's okay, send something that looks like a social security number to the cloud, to AI processors. Is there a sanitization framework in place currently? Is that in the cards? Like how is WordPress core thinking about sanitization?
It's a really good question. So far, we've opted out of getting into that. Similar to like when you're, if you're doing direct queries with a database, like, it's up to you to make sure that what you're sending to the database is something that is sanitized and safe and so on and so forth. So, the way that like the prompt builder, the way to actually interface with a model works is like, it's considered very, very low level. So we're not trying to get into an opinion of how to be safe about that just yet, as much as just saying like, hey, you can do this. Be responsible in the way that you're going about it. The AI experiments plugin is really where we're trying to be like a good example of like, here's how to use it, and here's how to make sure that you're sanitizing or doing whatever you need to put that stuff in there. But this is all good stuff to explore. But
yeah, I think it is going to be one of the thorny situations, and I think Zack is saying like maybe it's important to try to get ahead of it in one form or another, because there is a big difference between sending stuff to the database that's not necessarily the best practice or the wisest thing to have in your database versus sending somebody else's name and email address and IP address to a third-party service provider
that may or may not be training their data set on that value that you're sending to them. That's the real problem, I think. Like, absolutely, or a real problem. And like one of the ways to get around that is to have stable hashing algorithms that encode the PII so that the AI can understand when it's like vectorized. There's all these technical ways to get around that, but like exposing that to developers in a consistent manner, I think is important in the core AI investigation of this.
I love that.
I think there's definitely room for that. The one step that we're taking right now, that actually probably this week I'll be putting together a PR for, is a kind of a controlled kill switch for AI.
I didn't know that existed.
Which sounds absolute, but like really it's more like, what if you want to limit to a certain user role? Like only administrators can make AI calls. And if a subscriber tries, then it blocks that, right? So very sensible, authorization and whatever the context is for that, just providing a simple hook within the WP AI client so that people can have that level of control within their website. So that's the closest we're getting right now, is the ability to say, you know what, for this person or in this context or whatever, no, I don't want the ability to, to run prompts and so on and so forth.
One of the questions that we've been asking internally at GravityKit is, where does this data live? And this is an ongoing process that we've been like going back and forth on. Like, one of the processes in AI is to turn the data into numerical values that can then be used by the AI to understand like likeness and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Should data be vectorized? Like, if people are building plugins, what should be stored on the WordPress database in your mind versus what should be sent remotely? How should we think about that?
It's a good question. I mean, you're getting into, what's called embeddings, right?
Yep.
And embeddings correspond to like vector databases and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And there's like, it's like tricky answer, not only because of like, how far do we want to go, but also like, if you want vector support, then you have to be using MySQL 8, and WordPress doesn't support, or does support, but doesn't require MySQL 8. And so like,
or you
we
can
get
use
into
a
some of that
SQLite
stuff.
database that, like, the SQLite database can be stored in your plugin files. Like, there's all sorts of workarounds to have back compatibility. But like,
Right.
what should plugin owners do? Because there's so many different options.
Yeah, I mean, I think to start, we'll probably, at least have embedding support, the ability to send embedding requests to the model, but it's a pretty advanced use case. And so, at least in terms of the scope of WordPress and what we're proposing, like at least now, we're not even trying to propose any kind of vector stuff within WordPress itself. But it is a powerful feature if you are wanting to, have associations within your plugin. Then yeah, absolutely. Exploring all of that, I think, is just another great way to see what can be done practically. Because I think this is one of the toughest parts of working with AI is it is never so predictable as you think it is. Right? Like, you might think to yourself, like, oh, it does this. If I give it more context, it'll do it even better. And then you actually try it and it like gets worse. And you're like, oh my goodness, what happened? Like, I live by the rule, demo before you tell. Like, don't tell anybody, oh, we're going to do this, if you haven't actually demoed it yet and you don't know that it works.
Yeah, ask
Don't
Tim
say
Cook
it.
about this, because Tim Cook might have some opinions on what's possible.
Yeah, right. It's a line that I like to use it with AI is like, the difference between good and great is shockingly hard. You can get an AI to do something that like as like a good enough proof of concept. You're like, oh, it does this. I bet I can get it to do it really well with a little bit more work. And then you're like, oh my gosh, that is so much harder than I expected it to be. And that's going to be a challenge for plugin owners, is you can't just ship something good enough. Oftentimes you want to impress, you really want to wow your customers. And so you got to be more experimental with this stuff and try things out and really ask yourself the honest question, can I get the AI to do this in a way that is not ridiculous or, super expensive or whatever, that actually produces a consistently great result. And that's just, experimentation is the name of the game.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a couple really good questions in here I want to bring up, actually, just to spice it up a little bit. Scott Lewis is in YouTube asking, how do we get all this AI goodness without creating an insurmountable amount of future tech debt wrapped around an explosion in backwards compatibility issues? I love the bombastic question around this one. There's Jason, what's your quick take on this one from Scott?
I'm going to read it again. How do we get all this AI goodness without creating an insurmountable amount of future tech debt wrapped around an explosion in backwards compatibility issues?
Yeah.
It's a difficult question to answer generically. I guess it would depend on what we mean by tech debt. Like, what specifically is the technical debt that we're concerned about? I think one example of this would be the MCP adapter, right? We're not trying to put that in core because we're not entirely sure where MCP is going to go.
Good one, yeah.
So that's more of an opt-in right now, where it's like we're not like we're confident enough to say it seems like AI is here to stay. Probably. Now, around that, there's a bajillion protocols and things that are experimental, and we're not jumping on that bandwagon. We're making things like plugins that you can use if you want, but it's not going into core because, to Scott's point, that very well could become technical debt. It's also part of like not putting providers specifically into core right now. Like we're just trying to create the framework where AI empowerment is possible and easy, but not chasing any fads that might otherwise die out and become technical debt.
Yeah. I think part of his question is more of like, if users are able to use AI in core, they probably are going to end up generating a lot of code over a period of time that's probably a bit unmaintainable. That's a lot of the conversation that I've been hearing from folks that have concern in general. I mean, I think it's a valid concern in general. I don't think that core AI is enabling that right now. I think core AI not having opinions about code in WordPress is enabling it more than anything, because folks are just building whatever they want and throwing it into a plugin and then going from there. I think this is a broader issue about AI slop ending up in your WordPress website.
I will say there is discussion happening right now around the question of what is WordPress core's relationship with AI generated code. And what are the guidelines or rules or anything like that? That's like being explored right now, because I've even seen it where like super well-meaning people would go copy an issue, paste it in the codex or whatever, generate some extraordinarily over-engineered thing and make a PR. And then they would just do this with like 4 issues or whatever. And they're like, I'm contributing. And it's like, thank you. But then what can happen is like, if you're a core contributor, you want to guide them through this, you want to help them succeed and get this PR in shape, and it can end up taking a remarkable amount of time. And so, yes, like there's definitely thought around how can we have guidelines or even rules that help us to make sure that we're not lowering the standard in the name of let's just generate all the things with AI and just throw it in there and see what happens.
One of the issues that I think we are going to come across is everybody's exposing these abilities to the Abilities API, and then coordinating what actually can be possible through these interactions of the different plugins is going to be harder and harder to understand from a user, from an AI. Like, how do we make it so that we're allowing people to build solutions rather than just stuff that doesn't actually work in the end? Like the solution thinking isn't part of the Abilities API from what I understand. Like, unless somebody creates an ability that integrates with hard-coded suggested, like if I'm at GravityKit and I want to integrate really well with Jetpack, what do I do? How do I tell Jetpack that, like, through the Abilities API, that, or how do I let's say we try to do spam filtering. It's so confusing. I want to do spam filtering. So I do then the Abilities API and search for spam, and then whatever comes up is registered, or like you have to search all the Abilities API for spam and then have the AI figure out what the abilities are and then choose the best one somehow and then implement that one and then send that.
I think it's a really good one, because I think there's a lot of confusion around the Abilities API in general, like the value, the benefit, the why, at least from product owners who haven't dug really deeply into the code. Zack has, of course, but like, maybe a little primer, Jason, on the how, the why, the benefit of the Abilities API.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, for me as somebody with a product background, what was so exciting to me about it when I first heard it. So, um, if you, to Zach's point, if you go to TEC and then GiveWP and then GravityKit and then Jetpack, every single one of these products is going to have some sort of way that they want others to integrate with them, right? If it's Give, hey, you want to make a donation? Here's a way to do that, right? If it's TEC, do you want to update an event? Here's a way to do that. What historically none of these have had is any kind of a unified way of presenting that public facing API. So one of them might be a bunch of functions. Somebody else might be object oriented. Somebody else might be one, like Gravity Forms is like the GF API class that just has a bajillion methods on it. Like there is no standard way of one discovering what is the public API. You just have to hope that that product or plugin has good documentation, or you roll up your sleeves and you jump in the code and you figure it out yourself. And so there just was no standard for, hey, I, as a plugin, have a public way for others to interact with me. And so the Abilities API is at its most fundamental level that it is a public way of declaring to the whole world and using internally, here is a bunch of functions that you are encouraged to use. They're self-documenting in that you know what the input is, you know what the output's going to be. They're multi-contextual. It can connect to the command palette. It can connect to the REST API. It can connect to MCP, right? Like in a single place, you have the ability to connect all of this together. But so to land it, to answer your question, you would ideally have like a Gravity Forms or whatever. You can filter by their namespace, their unique namespace, see all the abilities they have, see one that fits, the description and such fits what you're looking for. There you go. It's self-documenting. And in the AI Experiments plugin, we actually just merged a PR. There's just a list table of a UI discoverable way of being able to search the existing registered abilities to make it even easier. So it's self-documenting, it's discoverable in a unified way. And that is so helpful so that you're not having to run around and be like, please have good documentation. Please have updated your documentation in the last year.
Jason and I have had these kinds of conversations a lot. So he's used to me asking like really basic dev questions. I want to translate it just one step further. A lot of plugins, maybe all of them in some ways, have leaned on actions and filters and things like that as the way to interact with their code bases. Is the Abilities API like actions and filters 2.0, or does it point to the existing actions and filters as like a map towards them, or just trying to navigate for the folks who dev like I do?
Really good question. So they live side by side with a very similar purpose. So hooks or actions and filters is a way of interacting with a plugin in a moment in time, right? So it could be like for GiveWP, you'd have like a donation created action, right? So I can connect to that action and I can say, hey, I, as this third-party plugin, I want to do something like send an email or connect to a Salesforce or whatever. I want to do something every single time a donation is created. So hooks are a way for a plugin to say, I am formally giving the world a way of interacting with me in particular moments in time, either through an action, which is a thing has happened, or a filter, which is I have some data. Do you want to do anything to it before I move it along? Abilities are it's that. It's an ability. It is a function. It's not a moment in time. It's not tied to a moment. It is tied to an action. Sorry, that's not a good word to use. It's tied to a function of like I want to create a donation or I want to update a donor. I'm not waiting for some moment to occur. It's just something I want to do because I've decided to do it. It makes sense in my context within this plugin. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you say are you assuming the end user or are you assuming other plugins as well? Or how should plugins be interacting with the Abilities API, or should it only be through the command palette that users interact with the Abilities API?
Yeah. So for plugin developers, first, create abilities. And again, think of this as your public portfolio of things you welcome others to do. You know, like sticking with like GiveWP, it's very common for folks to want to create a donation, update a donation, delete a donation, create a donor, update, right? All of those like basic actions that people may want to perform because they're doing something. They're creating some integration and they want to perform these things with that connect to GiveWP, and GiveWP will know what to do with that in that moment in time. So first is create actions and view the. Keep saying actions. Create abilities. Oh, is the trouble. Create abilities as a way for the rest of the world to be able to formally connect with your plugin, and then two, use other people's abilities. Because again, that is the you're playing ball. You're saying I'm using the ability that you've defined in the way that you have said it should be used. Great. And I trust that, this is the right way to go about it, as opposed to like when you dig into somebody's code and you find some very random function that they never intended anybody else to use. And you're like, oh, I'm going to use this because it does what I want. It's like, you don't know how fragile that is. They may change that later because they don't even realize anybody is using that publicly. Does that make sense?
Yep, I think so.
Nice. I want to bring in another comment here from one of our viewers. Max here is saying, going back to the MCP issue, and you kind of addressed this, Jason, I think, a little bit already, but Max says, wouldn't it also be beneficial to have many things more rely on file formats and core web technologies to avoid a function calling interface lock-in like MCP?
Yes. I don't know specifically what like file formats or core web technologies are being referred to here, but I do agree that the like things like the MCP should be extraordinarily optional. And even for like WooCommerce to have introduced MCP, like maybe it's not going to be a good long-term thing. But it was important to them to do it in such a way that it was like opt-in. They're not trying to like fundamentally shape all of WooCommerce to rely on this. It's just like, hey, for those experimenting with this right now, you can try this if you want to.
Yeah.
So having that way of going about it, but otherwise, like depending on what file formats and core web technologies they're talking about, like sure.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that, like, in terms of my takeaway from the Abilities API, is that it's a facade pattern on top of all your code. Which, for non-developers, that's like, it doesn't matter what's going on behind the scenes. All that can change. But if you know that somebody's going to want to create a user and like a donor and give WP, you expose create donor, and every other piece of code behind that can change. But as long as the stable ability remains, then that's what matters. So I think that
right.
It really simplifies things. It is, somebody earlier made a comment that says it seems like an evolution of the REST API and things like SOAP and things like that. I think, sure, REST API I've never loved because it's very complex in terms of like the response type. I think the Abilities API is a more elegant interface for WordPress than the REST API has been for me as a developer.
Yeah.
I mean, they're different, right? Like SOAP and REST is about external communication, and Abilities is about internal function. Abilities at their simplest is a multi-contextual public functional API. But it's like it can be, when I say multi-contextual, it could be used in REST, could be MCP, could be these other things, and you opt into that on a per ability basis. Do you want this ability to be available these different ways? Yes or no? But at its simplest, it is, it's meant to be run inside, one plugin running PHP, another plugin running PHP, executing the ability. So like, yes, they can connect to REST, but that's not fundamentally what abilities are for. So it is different from like REST or SOAP or something external facing like that.
Yeah. Another comment, question, I think it's just a comment, but I want to piggyback off of it. Also from Max, he says, I love WordPress now. It's so great to quickly test and develop plugins locally. It also pairs nicely with the agent browser skill in Claude Code, allowing the browser to use Chromium to click and interact. This has also been my experience personally. I've been experimenting a ton with AI locally, using WordPress Studio and Cursor and doing all kinds of skills and rules. And it's empowered me to do things. Funny enough, like in the past, whenever I was stuck, I would talk to Jason. I would be like, Jason, I'm stuck. So like secrets out. I call Claude Jason. That's what I do. I'm like, hey, Jason, tell me how to do it. But I think it's amazing. It's unlocked tons of things for me personally. I'm wondering, along with Max's comment here, how much of what Core AI team is doing is thinking not just about what is going into Core, but how everybody can work better with WordPress as developers. Is there going to be like best practices that's going to be talked about publicly, or like thinking more broadly than just the code base, but how everybody interacts with WordPress going forward is kind of where my head is going.
Yeah. I mean, the guidelines that I referred to earlier is kind of part of that. I will also take this moment to do a plug of like, please come join the party at Core AI. Like, It is not an exclusive group of people that we're just like, we are the representatives of AI and WordPress. Like, we want people to join. So if people like have these things on their minds, like, we have a lot of ideas and not nearly enough time to execute on every single idea we think of. So like, all of these things are awesome, and we'll probably get to it at some point. But yeah, like I love the idea. I want to see more like guidelines, best practices, as we continue to experiment on all of this stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking a little bit of like the WordPress coding standards project is still excellent and useful and necessary. I think it's more necessary now. It's a lot easier to work with it than it was in the past. You just tell Cursor to set it up, or Claude or whatever, set it up, and it can work. But maybe there's special ways to enhance the WordPress coding standards to address Claude and Cursor a lot more directly, or there's maybe a project just like WordPress coding standards that needs to be a parallel. Zach, I'm sure you have thoughts about this too.
Jason, is there any movement toward including something in the WP scripts package that is like AI related, or I don't know? Yeah, agents.md is a good example of that.
Yeah. So, we are WordPress, so we want to be very, AI is a crazy runaway train right now, right? And, we want to be very responsible and very mindful of like, what are we getting behind right now? And so like agents.md is a very small example of that, where like, I think is the Linux Foundation now, right, owns that, where you're seeing specs and open source things starting to rally. And that's a really comfortable place for WordPress to explore and to be like, oh, okay, so this is an open source spec. We're not backing, it's not political. This is just a free open thing now. Great. This is really safe territory for us to explore. So things like, I think on PHP AI client, WordPress AI client, like some of these, like you're starting to see agents.md being introduced, which for those who don't know is a standard for context for when you're using an agent to like codes like Claude Code or Codex or something like that. What it'll do is when you give it a prompt in this repository, it'll see that agents.md file and it'll read it first every single time and be like, oh, what does this tell me about this project? What's this important context that I can know? And so there's, definitely, I think some really great exploration that can happen, especially as we see more open source specifications take place so that we can more safely check it out.
100%. I love it. I think that kind of thing is going to be really useful going forward. I would love to see examples from plugin authors who are already thinking about how to empower other people to interact with their plugin code, and see what they're building into their plugins for these types of things. I think that would be really powerful and useful as well.
So one of the things that I'll just talk about some of the other ways that GravityKit is thinking about helping AI understand our plugins outside the abilities framework, which is really important, of course, but like the GravityKit.dev we just released, which is a DocuSource built website. GravityKit's got a bunch of plugins, right? And so it's hard to make sure that all of our plugin filters are all automatically updated. And with our, we do a really good job of doing inline filter documentation, but then going in and updating our docs site to update the filters to make sure they're correct and the coding examples are correct. All that stuff is really hard. So one of the things we've been doing is we clone all the repos into one folder, and then we have the WP hooks documenter package run for each one of the plugins, builds a DocuSource website, and updates it. And so that we have that run on a cron job now in using GitHub Actions, so that all of our plugin filters and like hooks and actions, all of those are all updated automatically all the time with the latest code. And what we're planning on doing is adding more examples to that, and keeping that updated in line in the code so that we don't have to maintain documentation separately, which is a huge pain in the neck if you've ever tried to maintain a code-based documentation.
And Zach, you're planning on doing a write-up on how you did that and publishing it on the WP Product Talk website.
So here's the thing with AI, right? We did a lot of, we forked the WP hooks documenter package, which is a great package. It also didn't have a couple of it didn't have support for deprecated tags. It didn't have support for a couple other things. And I want to take the time to do a PR back into the main plugin or package. That takes time. So instead, I've just spent the time building it out and releasing it. But then you're right, I need to do a good job of contributing back to the open source framework that enabled
contribute whatever.
Contribute, be a good member of the community, yada, yada.
Right. I would also love to see something that does the same exact thing with documenting abilities. So it goes through your code, finds all the abilities, and then documents that as well. I think that would be another really great way of doing that. Although it wouldn't even go through the code. It would literally be like a WP CLI command that just outputs, here's all your abilities, done. Go for it.
That's a good hack.
I love it. Cool. Well, we are at time, unless, Zach, I want to talk about best advice, unless you have some other. Are we good? Best advice? Yes.
I mean, best advice. I think Jason had it right, which is play around with it, create an ability, and see what that takes.
Yeah. No, okay. I just wanted to make sure that we're good for going into best advice right now, folks.
Oh, yeah, sure. Best advice. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Best advice is, elevator pitch. From what the subject we're talking about today, somebody corners you at WordCamp US. This is going to happen to Jason for sure. Somebody corners you at WordCamp US and is like, Jason, what do I do to get to leverage AI in my plugin? What is your elevator pitch? 30 seconds. Jason, you go first. Go.
Think outside the chat interface. Right now, when people are thinking AI, the bar of this imagined chat interface is so high. It has to be agentic, has to loop, it has to, all of this crazy stuff. And I'm pretty convinced that a lot of the benefits of AI are going to be very subtle. because we don't want to miss out on the fact that we have for decades now really honed in on what is a good UX. And AI does not suddenly invalidate that and throw it out the window despite a lot of our thinking. Like, no, we know what makes a good user experience. Bring AI into that in a subtle way, right? That is that continues to help the user feel empowered. And AI agents is one way of doing that. It is not the way of doing that.
It's almost
Yeah,
as if Jason knows exactly what we're going to be talking about next week, actually, which is user experience. Anyway, Zach, what's your...
Yeah, Jason, I wouldn't say that WordPress is demonstrates regularly that we always know what the best user experience is. we work
maybe
toward
we in the
it as
collective.
a collective consciousness. We all try to make it better, but like, oh, holy moly. That's one of the things that ways that I see WordPress evolving is more application focused and more outcome focused and less having users connect the pieces. And I feel like the WordPress dashboard redesign is going to maybe be behind the times in this if we just try to reproduce the same content structure but better. I think like rethinking what people are actually using their websites for is one of the main things that each of us as plugin owners is going to have to do, and make sure that we're well aligned with the outcomes that they're trying to accomplish rather than the how do we do this. Like GravityKit, we have tons of docs for like, well, you do this, then you do that, then you create a form, then you do this. That's nobody cares about this. All they want is the outcomes. So as WordPress plugin owners, my best advice is think about the outcomes. And like Jason said, try something. Ship an experiments branch of your plugin that people can install and go way off course and see like, is this a better experience? And then if people love it, incorporate it into your plugin. You have the ability to do this, and you can register abilities to do this in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, love it. My advice is like, just do it. That's what I've been doing. Personally, I've been just doing it.
That's my advice normally. Hold on a second.
I've experimented a lot with trying to make AI work in a one-off plugin. I did a plugin called TLDR-WP, which was kind of the precursor to what AI Experiments has already done now. And I made sure that it was dependent on Felix Arnst's AI services plugin previously. And then it was like, well, that's not going to be the future. The AI Experiments is going to be the future. So I just like switched it up. And now TLDR-WP depends on AI Experiments instead. And it works great. And I love it. I think it's super fun. And then the other one I just launched a fun free plugin called Synced Pattern Pop-ups. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. And it has an optional TLDR feature because I wanted to bring that in there as well. And if you turn on that feature, it automatically installs AI Experiments for you. And then you put in your credentials there, not your credentials, your API keys there. And then you have a TLDR feature in that plugin. And it's been super fun to figure that out and to figure out the Abilities API. I wouldn't have been able to talk about any of these things or follow Jason and Zack at all if I hadn't had experimented to death with all that stuff. And I'm really a web dev. I'm not like a techie full stack dev at all. So it's been awesome and cool. I've definitely been in the wings when it comes to the core AI meetings every week, and they are talking about all the great stuff. And so I agree with Jason. Join the weekly meeting whenever you can on Slack. It's super cool. It's a great way to see how things are evolving. Yeah, that's not an elevator pitch. That was a lot of great best advice, but that's what I would say to folks for sure. So anyway, cool. So everybody, thank you so much. This has been great. Jason, thank you so much. Tell everybody where they can find you online so they can nag you and ask you all their questions online later.
I think probably the two best places, well, three, I guess. The WordPress Slack. I'm on there. I'm regularly on there. So honestly, it's probably the best. If you want to find me, you can DM me. You can hop on the Core AI channel. I'm there. I'm around. I'm also on X and I'm also on LinkedIn. You're welcome to find me those ways as well. But yeah, I try to be fairly approachable, so feel free to reach out.
You seem like a
Nice.
fairly approachable guy. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
If you're enjoying these shows, please do us a favor and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, and you could really help us out right now. It's free, it's easy, it helps support our work. Special thanks to Freemius again for sponsoring the show.
And next week, we have another ex-Give person like Jason, who's also at Automattic now, like Jason. None other than my longtime partner in crime, Devin Walker, is going to be joining us next week. I'm excited for it, even though I'm not hosting. He's been doing some really cool stuff as he's leading up Jetpack. He's focusing on the UX, and I think that, like Zack has been saying today, that is a sorely needed focus in the WordPress space in general, and it's super cool to see what Devin's been able to do heading up Jetpack over there. He's going to talk all about it. So tune in next week, and we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.